Hello and welcome back to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. My name is Eric Hurlock and I am out on the road. Today I am sitting in the RV outside of Boulder, Colorado. It has not been an easy journey to get across the Midwest, but it has been rewarding in the sense that we've met some great people doing amazing things along the way. On today's show, we're going to talk to the folks from South Bend Industrial Hemp in South Bend, Kansas. Melissa Baldwin, Aaron Baldwin, and Rich Baldwin. They hosted a very well-attended open house at their farm in South Bend, Kansas. There were people from all over in attendance: California, South Dakota, Nebraska, Missouri. People traveled from all over to get to South Bend, Kansas for this open house. My family and I rolled in a little late after another challenging day of life in the RV on the road. But let's back up a little bit. So from our campsite in Illinois, we traveled to St. Louis. We crossed the Mississippi River, saw the big arch, and made our way across the Show Me State, eventually making our way to a farm just south of Lawrence, Kansas. The CEO of my wife's company lives there. We got there a little later than expected, and they had dinner waiting for us, barbecue and brisket, and it was delicious. But when we got back to the RV after dinner, we heard the sound of gushing water coming from the RV. Upon further inspection, I found that a connector in the plumbing under the sink had snapped off and water was just pouring through the bottom of the RV. Not good. I shut off the water pump and found a shut-off valve for the water. It was just another devastating blow to my family, who are really starting to look forward to getting home. This trip has not been easy for them. My kids miss their friends and our pets. My wife is not enjoying working from the road. She doesn't like having work meetings while we're barreling down the highway. And I get it. This is hard to do. Sure, it sounds fun, like a dream come true, to travel the country in an RV for 6 weeks, but the fun is wearing off for my family. Anyway, after I shut off the water, we went to bed. I woke up early, awakened by the sound of really loud roosters. I set up the camp stove and made coffee, and then I started problem solving for the water leak. I let the owner of the RV know what was happening. I even called roadside assistance to see if they could help. But plumbing is sort of out of their purview. So I started calling plumbers. I must have called at least 20 plumbers in the greater Lawrence, Kansas area. And finally, I found Castle Plumbing. And they sent their guy, Austin, out to help. And he got it all fixed in like 15 minutes. I am so grateful for his help. My other option was to fix it myself, and I really did not want to do that. I don't like doing plumbing work whatsoever. Besides, I had no tools, I had no material, so I just wanted somebody to come and just handle it. And so that's what Austin from Castle Plumbing did in like 15 minutes. And so what seemed like an insurmountable issue the night before was now only a slightly inconvenient episode of life in an RV. So we packed up, said goodbye to our gracious host, and hit the road. And by that I mean we went to Target in Lawrence to buy my daughter a new pair of sneakers. You see, somehow when we left Pennsylvania, we were all packed up. We only brought one of her sneakers, and she needs two. You know, you have 2 feet, you need 2 sneakers. So anyway, we were at Target in Lawrence when I got a call from my sister back home telling me that my mom was being admitted to the hospital. See, this is where the RV trip starts to get emotionally complicated for us. My mom was recently diagnosed with breast cancer and had started chemo a week before we left. Is it the right thing to do for us to leave? My mom did not want us to cancel this trip. You know, it's the trip of a lifetime. And while my wife especially has been, one of her biggest supporters and caregivers, we were assured by our network at home that everything would be fine and that she'd be in good hands while we were away. But it's incredibly hard to be away, especially now that she's having some reaction to the chemo and needed to be hospitalized. It's just difficult. It's difficult to be 2,000 miles away from where we're needed. The call from my sister really underscored how just difficult it is to be away and how poorly timed this trip is, really. But I am committed to the journey and to telling the story of life on the road and the story of the burgeoning hemp industry. So, will the hemp tour continue? Will we cut the hemp tour short and head home? I don't know. Another challenging thing that we're facing is these heat waves and the fires out west. When we rolled down I-70 toward Colorado, I was expecting to see the Rockies from a pretty good distance, but the sky over Denver was so hazy that we could barely see the outline of the mountains until we were almost to the city. The first time I saw the Colorado Rockies was from the window of a train in 1994. First, there was nothing, just that flat horizon, and then, like a sunrise, you saw tiny peaks appear, and they grew steadily larger in the golden morning light. But that was 26 years ago, and the world has changed considerably since then. The haze was from smoke from fires. The West has been suffering from extreme heat, and they're experiencing some of the worst fire conditions ever. And we are responsible for this. Human activity is causing this, and we need to change how we operate, how we manufacture things, how we spew these greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. And sure, I know that driving around the country in a gas-guzzling RV is not the eco-friendly thing to do, but the people I'm meeting along the way are the pioneers in that paradigm shift that is underway. The heat and fires are also making it very difficult to go on to the places that we had hoped to go to. After Colorado, at first we wanted to go down south to see the Grand Canyon and then up through California, but it's so hot there. Then we thought we would just make a beeline for the California coast, Northern California, to see the redwoods and the ocean. We actually have an invitation from some friends in Fieldbrook up in Humboldt County, California, to stay in a yurt for a few days. But getting there through this patchwork of fires and heat domes and very dangerous conditions, it's irresponsible, right? Can I safely take my family through this mess? Should I be taking them through places where the temperature is 130 degrees? I don't think so. So the itinerary for this trip is in flux. We might just head north and spend more time in Montana. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, back to the event at South Bend Industrial Hemp. Melissa, Aaron, and Rich are making hemp happen in Kansas. They've got a great big plot of hemp grown under pivot. It's irrigated. They've got some on dry land. Their farm is like 2,500 acres, and some of that is in hemp. You know, they're also row crop farmers. But they've also recently put in a decorticator that was built by Formation Ag, and now they are processing fiber. And that processing capacity is encouraging to their neighboring farmers who now have a place to take their hemp. So it's great to see. It's great to see it happening. And so today's show is my interview with Melissa, Aaron, and Rich from South Bend Hemp. A quick shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by IND Hemp in Fort Benton, Montana, where they're making things happen up there. And a big thank you to our tour sponsors, IND Hemp and New Holland Agriculture, the National Hemp Association, Rosedowns, Americhanvre Hemp, King's Agriseeds, Terradon Hemp, and we just picked up 2 new sponsors along the way, Victory Hemp Foods and Bish Enterprises. Thank you all for your support. Oh, and speaking of Bish Enterprises, I saw Andrew Bish and his younger brother Jacob Bish at the event in Kansas. It was great to see you guys, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you at the event in Montana and then at our event in Lincoln, Nebraska in a few weeks. So more details on that stuff later. But all right, let's get into our show. Hi, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Melissa Baldwin.
Aaron Baldwin.
Richard Baldwin.
And what's the name of your hemp farm?
South Bend Industrial Hemp.
And that's where we are right now. And you had a pretty amazing event tonight with a great turnout.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, we're pretty proud of it.
Yeah. So tell me about the farm. When did you get into growing hemp?
2018.
19.
We started discussing it in 2018, and then in Kansas legalized 2019. We started growing CBD in a small fiber grow, and then last year we grew large fiber acres, and then this year again large fiber acres. Still with a small CBD grow indoor and outdoor, mainly to supply our product line, CBD products.
Okay. And then where do you market those?
So we market on our website. We've built up a website. We really pride ourselves in using local. So we had a local marketing girl help me build the website, and then we maintain everything from there.
Cool. And so you did a bigger fiber grow last year and this year, right?
Not necessarily. So in 2019, we grew 80 acres of dryland fiber along with our 1,500 CBD plants. We learned a lot in terms of education, was not so successful in terms of production. I think that tied into a very successful 2020 year. We actually moved to 55 acres underneath a pivot, so higher quality land or higher valued land, and had a beautiful crop that was successful in terms of education and production. So this year we actually did a full pivot, which was 110 acres plus 4 dryland corners.
Okay. And what sort of challenges did you face?
We're facing, just the unknown, just like everybody else, the supply chain in terms of fiber and grain. But we kind of answered and came up to a solution for our own problem because we now have our fiber processing plant.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah. So did you get something from Formation Ag?
Yes, we
Yeah, what'd
use
you
a
get?
660 decorticator from Formation Ag.
Okay. And have you started running that yet?
Yeah, so we have the first full system from Formation Ag, 660 fiber track decorticator, bale feeder with a bass fiber cleaner, and we are in full production now. We've been running about a month now, so still lots of learning and setting machines and getting it to work the way we really know it can work. We've seen it do beautiful stuff. We know it does a really good job of decorticating, producing good, clean, consistent hurd and a good long strand fiber. So we are running at full capacity and really cranking out some good stuff and supplying some really great customers already. So it's been very challenging, but we've made strides in the last 3-4 weeks.
Cool. Can you talk about the customers that you're supplying?
Yeah, so we're working with a couple construction hemp block and hempcrete companies one out of California, working with a company out of West Virginia on a blow-in insulation type concrete deal, and then we are in talks with some fiber paper product companies that are wanting some bast fiber for paper and cardboard products.
Nice.
And there's lots of other talks too. There's just so many ways we can go with this stuff. Bioplastics, one that's actually pretty close to us here in the state of Kansas. That is, as soon as we get to producing, the amount and the product they need, we're really sure we can do some stuff with them, and just other bioplastic products in general. So,
Okay.
and we are supplying a handful of horse barns with just a first run standard animal bedding that's working really great. So.
Okay. Rich, you're awfully quiet. What do you have to say?
Well, the things that I oversee more, Melissa's in more of the research and PR stuff. Aaron's been heading up our decortication machine here the last month and a half. I've kind of been doing the farming end of it. My part's kind of that part of it, the planting and water maintenance and everything on the field is kind of my gig, and it's kind of getting to a steady pace now to where I'm not going as busy as these guys are until harvest time. Then that's where I will kick in.
Right. What are you running harvesting?
We will, when we harvest, we're going to harvest for grain, and then we're going to come back in and get the fiber. We're just going to run our conventional combine and harvest the grain, and then we'll come back in and swap it, bale it, lay the fiber down, let it wet, and while we go off and harvest our conventional crops, and we'll come back, bale it up, and send it over to the fiber plant.
Right. You're row cropping too.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what a lot of people maybe don't realize about us is that we're not just in the hemp world. Rich and I operate our family's 4th generation irrigated row crop farm. We farm about 3,000 acres of corn, soybeans, milo, wheat. We're very busy on that as well. So as you know, we're venturing on these hemp and this fiber journey. We still have a lot of other
Work to do.
We still have the day-to-day stuff of the conventional commercial farm that we do, and then Melissa also operates her research facility. So there's lots of irons in the fire.
Yeah. How do you see hemp fitting into your rotation? Can you talk about that?
It works. It's a great avenue for all of us. You know, for the farming side, it's another cash crop. You know, it's another commodity that the farm can utilize in terms of rotation, in terms of just utilizing the limited water that we could have on dry years, or a pivot that maybe doesn't have the water output as the others do. For me, it really fits in within the niche research business. And so we all bring such different strengths within our original companies that South Bend was just a natural merger.
Okay. The pivot stuff is not something I'm used to at all. We don't have that back east. What's your average water usage there?
So our average water use on most of our pivots is about 18 to 20 inches for corn. The pivot we have all our hemp on, we're limited on water use, and that's kind of what steered us to putting hemp on that irrigation quarter, because the hemp requires less water. So it was a natural fit. We don't have that big amount of water there. The hemp doesn't take that amount of water to grow, so that's just kind of where it ended up.
Okay.
So it's a really good fit for a low water pivot.
All right.
And a lot of people don't realize, and it's different state to state. In Kansas, the state sets the amount of acre inches that you can apply via your pivot. And we monitor that, and there's meters on all the wells. We have to turn in all those meters, and so you only get so many inches. And so you have to use a crop that utilizes those inches to the best of your farming practices.
Wow.
So, and like I know in Colorado you buy it. It's like so many dollars per acre inch or whatever. So it's different state to state.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're what they call allotted a certain amount of water. So we aren't using all the water that's physically available. We are just using our allotment. But you do get out into western Kansas and eastern Colorado, where water is more and more of an issue, and they physically run out of water, like at the end of the season.
Yeah.
You know, they can pump all they can pump, but they literally run their wells dry towards the end of the year, and then it has to recharge for next year. So back to the question, hemp just fits in our rotation very well. And one of our biggest things is that we've really tried to utilize existing equipment that we have on the farm to grow hemp. Now, does that mean that there's not a need for special harvesters in this? No, there definitely is. Once the scalability grows and the monetary position comes, there's definitely a great need and great use for special equipment. But to get your feet wet and get in the game and to try it out, you don't have to make that huge investment just to try it and see if it works for you, or see if it's something that fits in your operation.
Right. How about some of your neighbors around here? What's their sort of opinion of what you're doing? Are they getting interested? Are they going to start growing hemp themselves?
3 years ago, they all thought we were crazy. But now we getting a lot of really good feedback. We have farmers interested in what we're doing, and they that was another big push for the facilities. We had farmers say, "Hey, I'd love to try this crop, but where's it going to go? Are you going to buy it?" Well, yeah, we are now.
Yeah.
Like that was part of the big push, and that feeling of that we can make this work. So lots of really good interest. We have lots of good farmers growing right now for us to supply our facility, and lots of more interest. So it's just really growing.
Cool. I took the bus tour out to the stand down the road, and I thought I heard you say that whole thing is volunteer this year.
So the 55 acres that we planted last year, the half pivot, we did not come back in and replant that. That is volunteer from last year's harvest, and the rest of that quarter of ground we planted this year. The other half of the pivot and then the dry land corners, we did plant.
Okay.
But the original acreage on that pivot from last year, we did not replant it.
Okay. That was a pretty good looking stand out there. Did it look that good last year too?
It did. It did. And in our grand scheme of things, before we knew, we thought the taller, the better, but when we went to go harvest, it presented some issues with harvesting seed with conventional equipment, not that tall, just presented some issues. So we're learning as we go. We're trying to limit it to where it optimizes the height for the fiber, but yet limits the height for harvest, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So how do you do that? Is that through genetics or what?
Nitrogen
applications,
okay.
and watering applications, and just kind of trying to hit the right spots.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can actually apply fertilizer through our irrigation pivot at certain times of the growing stage, and that really affects on whether it's at the vegetation stage, whether it's at the reproduction stage, or grain fill, whatnot. So we can really control what that plant does at certain times with fertilizing through our irrigation.
Cool. Plans for the future at South Bend Industrial Hemp?
Keep going.
Yeah, just keep going. Just keep farming. Our goal is to really bring farmers up with us. That's why we developed this growers group, because at the end of the day, yes, we could have produced all the acres that we need for our facility, but we're thinking 5 years down the road. When we have 10,000 acres we're now needing, instead of having a group of farmers starting at square one, well, let's get them in where they feel comfortable, whether that be 15 acres or 50 acres. Where do they want to learn how to grow this crop? And so we're really trying to rise together.
Okay. Was that sort of the impetus for the open house tonight, or what
Honestly,
gave you that idea?
The open house was just an educational event for our local community. We have so many people that listen to our radio show the first Tuesday of every month. We have people that follow our Facebook page, and they wanted to see where their CBD products were coming from. They wanted to see the fiber grows and learn about different things fiber can do. So we had this open house last year, and then it's slowly evolved, or rapidly evolved, because it was
Nothing slow about it.
Yeah, slow. This year was great, and then we already have a date set for next year, July 8th, 2022, and we've already got people that have RSVP'd for coming. So
Cool.
to the next one.
I'm not RSVPing until probably July 31st next year.
Tell me about the radio show real quick.
Yeah, so we just work through our local radio, Eagle Radio, KVGM, 1590 AM or 95.5 FM. We are on the first Tuesday of every month at 8:30. And if you can't get either of those radio stations, just join in on our Facebook group, and we're Facebook Live, South Bend Industrial Hemp.
They are also on the internet on the
Okay.
radio show, so
Alright.
you can get them through an app, 1590 FM KVGB.
All right. Cool.
You
I'll
can
put a
hear us
link.
around the world.
Yeah.
I'll put a link to that on the show
Yeah,
page
yeah,
for this
it's a lot
episode.
of fun.
Thanks
Cool.
for coming and visiting.
Yeah,
our
it's been
open
great.
house, and
Yeah.
we're glad you're here.
Yeah.
Me too. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that pretty much does it for this episode from the road. I'd like to give a big shout out to Chris and Cass from Grow Missouri Hemp. They are fans and listeners of our podcast, and they drove over 6 hours from Missouri to the open house in Kansas. It was great to meet you guys, and thank you for my awesome Grow Missouri Hemp t-shirt, and I will wear it with pride. I've met so many great people on this trip and have heard from many more too, in emails and Instagram and on LinkedIn, people who want to get involved with what we're doing. I've had lots of invitations to stop by farms and businesses along the way, And while I'd like to visit everybody in all the states, time and resources dictate that we can't get everywhere. But after I get back to Pennsylvania, I will be interviewing all the folks that I couldn't visit. There are so many great people in the hemp, fiber, and grain space, and I look forward to telling your stories too. So my name is Eric Hurlock for Lancaster Farming Newspaper, the greatest agricultural newspaper in the world. Until next time, I'll see you on the road. Episode 143 of the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast is copyright 2021 by Lancaster Farming Newspaper, which is part of the Steinman Communications family. Today's show was written and recorded, edited, and produced by Eric Hurlock. Any music you hear throughout the show is courtesy of Tin Bird Shadow.
Industrial hemp.